This video is about having honest conversation, not only for myself, but for others. And it's something that I don't think people take the time out to actually have, whether it be amongst themselves or on a platform that they utilize to cater to a particular fan base, which creates pandering to a particular narrative. Me, when I get more established and more comfortable in how I articulate my point of views, I want my platform to balance the scales. Um, I don't want to just entertain an echo chamber where my point of view overshadows someone else's perception on something, vice versa. Um, and having an honest conversation, I would like to establish an open dialogue where I have a platform, there are people to come in or even comment on, you know, minus the insults, because a lot of people love to get on certain people's channels, go to the comments section, and start insulting people and stuff like that. But if you have a opposing point of view to a comment or someone's perspective on something, what I find funny is that people fail to give uh, points of references to validate their argument. They just come in with insulting statements, and they feel that that's the end all be all, and they done made their point, and then they're ghosts, so to speak. If you want to make a comment with a sound argument, have more credibility to the point that of what you're trying to convey or get across to the person that you're debating. Um, Me, I try to do that. I may have an opinion about something. It may be based off of things that I've have experienced, things that I have seen with my own eyes, things that I've seen with references of videos that are out there. Um, Looking at other people's platforms, their channels, um, and I believe now is as good as a time ever to have an honest conversation amongst ourselves. Um, I'll be the first one to put out there, throw on the table that there's a lot of things that, in detail, I don't have an acute knowledge of when it comes to breaking down facts, you know. But as an overall summary, where you can break things down in layman's terms, I have a general idea of certain talking points on particular topics that have been discussed or in the midst of being discussed. Um, but I don't think I don't think people are talking from a logical standpoint. You know, people I feel that do have a platform that they do pander to a echo chamber. They like hearing the sound of their own whatever. And if they have criticism, they don't respond to the criticism, so to speak, because they're so used to people feeding them what they want to hear, not the opposite of what they're used to hearing. They're not challenged, you know. Um, some of the examples, and I'll say this. I'm gonna go with Brandon Tatum. Okay, Brandon Tatum puts out there that he's an officer, and when he talks about police interactions, his passion is, or his attitude comes from, it doesn't matter what you do. If a cop tells you to do something, that is law. You're supposed to obey the law. You don't argue. You don't do this. You don't challenge. And that's the end of discussion. And that's him coming from a cop's point of view. From a person's point of view, as a citizen of this country, rights that you're entitled to, rights that cops have been known to violate. And this is not even before they touch foot into the courtroom. But this is from a man who himself has admitted that he had a questionable past. That he wasn't always, on the up and up. That he wasn't always the outstanding citizen. That he himself found himself in questionable circumstances. But he'll be the first person to want to throw somebody else under the bus because he got himself to a certain level or a certain status where, okay, you came from a particular point in your life, you progressed, you've evolved, but now since you're on a particular pedestal, you want to look down on somebody. I mean, that's kind of like saying, how should I put this to those that can get a better picture? It's kind of like a person who used to be a drug addict, turned his life around, has that in their past, but because they are doing better, because they are well established now, because they have made something of themselves, they feel that they could just look down on other addicts as if they never knew what it was like to walk in those shoes prior to getting themselves together. It's one of those situations and things when discussing or giving your point of view on situations when you're looking at it from the outside and you're passing judgment on someone else, and you forget that just as you're pointing the finger at somebody else and you're passing judgment or you're trying to justify why these person have to deal with these circumstances, whether it's being shot or killed or being beat up or being handled a certain way, that you yourself was that person that you're sitting there criticizing. Where we seem to have a problem is that we don't care about understanding anymore. It's like it's like black and white. There's no gray area. And it's funny because I was thinking about it, and the reason why it brought me to this particular video, because I was watching an old movie called Judge Dredd with Sylvester Stallone and Rob Schneider. And I'm looking at, like the situation where Rob Schneider's character, like he just got out of jail. He was put in a predicament where his apartment was occupied by actual thugs. He's just like a level 1 criminal, just like, just petty crime shit. And, he still got judged, but he was dealing with self-preservation. But there was no empathy for his circumstance. He was just being judged based on him violating something as far as like hacking a garbage dispenser or whatever, which he hid in to protect himself against the thugs that occupied his apartment, just tearing up the block until Judge Dredd came in and neutralized the situation. Well, he didn't neutralize it. He just took the criminal element out. Whatever. And then, lo and behold, ironically, guess what happened to Judge Dredd? Them same laws that he was sworn to uphold came back full circle and bit him in the ass. And he wasn't guilty, but because of circumstantial evidence. And because he judged someone who came back and judged him back. And was actually the reason why he found himself in the predicament that he was in to begin with. And of course, there was politics behind it. But it's kind of like, yeah, that's fiction, but it's not too far from reality. I'm just saying. But with a person getting back on point, when an officer, ex-officer, I should say, Brandon Tatum, a lot of his videos that deal with police interactions, I get turned off of or from because he just, there's like no leniency. And then when he makes the comment of, oh yeah, back when I was an officer, I wish someone would test a Brandon Tatum because they know they got that smoke. So basically, what you're saying was you made a transition from being a thug on the street to a thug in uniform. So what you couldn't get away with on the street, you were now granted a costume and the qualifications and the qualified immunity to go just mess with people legally because you couldn't do it illegally. I mean, that's how you present it. You need to watch. This is what I'll try to tell people. When people sit there and you got their attention and you got their full undivided attention, they are going to do just that. Pay attention. And when they listen to you, they're like, oh, so this the type of person that you are? So I could tell when you was on the force, you was that type of officer. So when you're pushing for that whole blue line and stuff like that, were you part of the corruption? Were you the type of officer that was violating people's rights? Were you the one that was like covering your body cam and beating the brakes off of people and then conveniently turning the body cam back on? These are questions that a person like me, when I'm sitting there saying, okay, you know what? Yeah, that person, he deserved what he got because, that was pretty messed up. I see why that officer did that. Yep, hey, I'm not going to defend the actions of that person. Then you look at this situation, you're like, oh, damn. I think the officer kind of like crossed the line with that one. No, I don't think it should have went that way. I did hear Officer Brandon Tatum. Well, in this situation, this person should have held his breath. He shouldn't have been breathing so hard. He wouldn't have got that smoke. And in this situation, well, you know how I feel about that situation, so we're not even gonna go there. But back to this situation, he got softened up. Yeah. Really, dude? Seriously? So, like, when people wonder, like, well, what's your issue with Brandon Tatum? I'm going to tell you what my issue is exactly that type of rhetoric that he spews out to people. And then he wants to talk about, well, there are good black people out there, but you don't talk about the good black people because you're too busy generalizing black people as if they're all criminals. And then you wonder why people get turned off when you start talking and start spewing that nonsense. And then when they see you on certain platforms, you're like, oh, yeah, we figured that one. Oh, yep, that's not a surprise. I seen that one coming. So we know who you are river dancing to. What crowd you are pandering to. It is what it is. Like I said, everybody has to have their hustle, but things come full circle. And one of the examples I hate to touch upon, but one of those people on your, rosters between the Candace Owens the Brandon Tatums, the ABLs, the Jesse Lees, and Kingface. You heard the domino effect, right? When people start getting exposed, I'm just saying, I'm just saying, the universe has a funny way of balancing the scales.